I'm here today, and this is my 690 Adventure. It's a 2017 model. And what I thought I would do today is spend some time showing you how to actually lower the height of this particular motorcycle. If we raise it right here, right now, you'll see that it's right at 36 inches to the top of the seat. And then if we do an even more important measurement here, at the rear axle, and measure it to this particular bracket, we show 13.5 inches. So what I want to do is I want to change out the link here in the bottom of the suspension system, and I want to lower it probably a little more than an inch. So I'm going to show you the steps in order to do that. I'm going to use a product called Kouba Link, a great, well-accepted product, and just take you through the steps on how to do that. Okay, so next thing in the instructions, it says you're supposed to jack the motorcycle up. So I actually have my motorcycle jack right here, and I've tried a couple of different positions to get it, and I can get it stable, but the goal here is we're going to take off this 19 millimeter bolt and these two 10 millimeter bolts, and this whole unit is going to fall off. I'm going to have to disconnect this as well. This is a rack, this is an aftermarket rack. But when I put the jack in place, it's on this bracket right here. So I think I'm going to take it off first and then try the jack and see how that goes. You may have the same problem going forward. If I had a different jack, one that was not as wide, I think I would be in okay shape. But this particular jack, it's unstable when I move it too far forward to clear this brace. So therefore, I'm going to wait until I get the brace off to put the jack in place. So I'm going to remove those bolts. Going to have to do it on both sides. This removes this whole foot peg assembly, which I think also has this rear brake attached. Got to get it out of the way so that you can actually work on the link, which is down here. Okay, so here's what's happening here. So you see these are the 10 millimeter bolt holes, and this was the 19 millimeter bolt holes. So when you take those things out, this entire unit just falls away just like that. You probably see those bolts sitting on the ground there beneath the unit there. So it just falls away, and it frees you to be able to see this bolt inside here. If you can't see it, you will in just a few more shots. And that bolt right there is what's holding on that stock swing arm that you're going to be replacing with the lower swing arm. Now you got to do that on both sides, and then you have to get the jack in place. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get the jack in place and then get this unit up to take the weight off this rear wheel. Okay, after taking this front or right side lever off, I realized that I could not take the left side lever off until I got the motorcycle on the jack. So here I have it on my motorcycle jack. The trick here is that you need to get it on the engine, and then you need to use something like tie-down straps, which is what I've got here, to actually stabilize the motorcycle and ensure that it is a stable working platform while you're taking everything off. I tried to get the other side bracket off. This has got the foot lever and the other things on the other side, but the trick is that you got to have it on the jack because the side stand is on the other side. So when you disconnect those bolts on the other side, the side stand, of course, is connected to it, and the motorcycle falls down. So that's why you have to have it jacked up in advance. Instructions are correct. I just couldn't figure out how to do it, so I had to make sure my platform was stable using these tie-down straps. Okay, so the next part of the instructions is after you get it all raised up, you've got this kind of hanging loose here, and it's actually loose on the other side. It's actually completely off on the other side, the foot peg. You're supposed to remove this 19 millimeter bolt. It's the nut on the bolt. You push that bolt through, and you remove that 10 millimeter. You push that bolt through, and that whole unit should just drop right out of there. And your shock will stay in place. Everything else will stay in place. But you're going to drop that unit out of there, and then you're going to be sticking the new unit. Okay, so I have just removed this bolt from here, has pushed it through. It was a little difficult, and I wanted to get online with you here to just tell you. What I did was I got on the back side, I put a little bit of lubrication on the bolt itself while it was still in, and I used my impact driver to spin the bolt inside there, and then I had to lower the jack so that a little bit more weight was on the rear wheel, took a little bit of the pressure off, and then I punched it out with a bolt. Now, this particular bolt is smaller. It fits right into this little groove inside that pivot bolt, and it pushed it out just fine without boogering up the thread. So just a little tip on that first bolt that you have to remove the 19 millimeter. Okay, so we kind of completed the operation. We took the rear bolt out, told you about that one, it went right here. Then we took this front bolt out, and it consisted of this 10 millimeter bolt plus a couple of washers. This unit was hanging up in here and attached to this right here. So when I removed this bolt, this pin slid out. And it was a little difficult getting it out, but you pull it right out. And it is what was holding it in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the new Kouba Link and I'm going to put it right in its place. I'm going to take this unit, I'm going to slide it through, I'm going to grease this up first, and then put this in place here, and then slide that sleeve back through there and secure it with the bolt there and the two washers. Okay, folks, so I have returned that mounting bolt on the front with the 10 millimeter nut that holds it in place as a washer, two washers actually in place. And you'll see that the Kouba Link is now hanging down. So now I have to lift this, and I have to actually put that back bolt in place. Here it is. So I will do that, and we'll be finished in just a few minutes. Okay, so now I've got the Kouba Link installed, and I've got this bolt right here torqued to 60 foot-pounds. The front bolt, I'm not sure about the torquing. I've got it to around 20, but I'm going to check that, and then I'll be back in touch with you. Next thing to do, of course, is to reassemble all the different piece parts that I've taken off in order to get it on, and then we should be almost finished. Okay, so I've got the right side foot peg back on, and that involved this 19 millimeter plus these two 10 millimeters, so it's back in place. Brake lever's back in place. We're all good on the right side. Now I'm going to go and do the left side, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do before I actually start. Okay, so here's the left side assembly, and that's the kickstand that's still installed on it. And so remember I told you that when you lower the bike, of course the kickstand, the original kickstand, it's going to be too long. So some people cut them down. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and install this new Warp 9 in its place. This is, I think it's for a supermoto. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. Now, the thing that we have to remember on this particular device, of course, watch that spring because that'll hurt you. But there are a couple of sensors here. There's this, this particular little sensor right here, and that is your kickstand sensor. You got to bolt that, take it off, and then bolt it back in place onto the new kickstand so that the turn-off switch for the engine will work correctly. There's another unit that's attached to the bike that thing has to line up with. So be sure to change that out, and when I do that, then I'm going to put the unit back on and we'll have a simple bike. Okay, so here's the left side. Now this is the new kickstand. You'll notice that it's significantly off the ground now, so hopefully this shorter one, this is from Warp 9, and it is for a supermoto. So it's designed for a lower motorcycle, so hopefully this is going to be the right size, given I'm lowering the bike about an inch and I guess it's 3/8, inch and 3/8. Now I've reattached this unit using the two bolts. This is two 10 millimeter bolts plus the 19 at the top. And check the pressure. I think it's 14 foot-pounds on these particular bolts is what you need. So so now we're just ready. I'm going to do a little bit more work on the bike, and then I'll wrap it up here and show you the different height. Okay, now that you've got the bike all back together, the last thing you'll want to do, and I'll show you the entire bike in just a second, is to actually change the height of these particular clamps. So they suggest 0.75 inches. I've done it a little bit more. I've done it exactly 1 inch. So what you do is you unloosen these, and there's two more on the bottom. You unloosen those, and you just slide this fork up. And by sliding the fork up, you actually lower the front end. And so I've lowered it 1 inch. This used to be up to this mark, and now I've added another, well, it's probably 750 or 0.75 of an inch that I've lowered it because there was a little bit showing. But now it's exactly to the top, 1 inch. And I've done that on both sides, and you make sure you do that so that the forks are level. But you do that because you've lowered the rear end. Now you want to lower the front end just a touch as well. And by doing that, you level the bike out. You'll want to play around with that. They say that if you lower this too much, the front end too much, it can cause diving and other stuff, and sharp turn-ins and instability. So lower it 1 inch, and it'll go along with the lowering that you've just done to your bike. So now we're at the end of the project. We've changed out the link. We've actually adjusted our forks so that they too were lowered. And now the finished product on this particular motorcycle is that right now that seat height is right below 35 inches. Right below 35 inches. So it lowered it more than an inch at the seat, and here at the rear axle we've also lowered it to around less than 12.5 inches, so 12.25 inches, so more than 1.25 inches on the rear. So what this is going to allow me to do is actually get my feet down on the ground, and I'm going to be able to really handle this motorcycle better in rougher terrain where I need to use my feet to get down and actually stabilize the bike going over rough terrain. Now we're also going to have to do some adjustment here, things like the sag and some compression and dampening, but I'll let some other video tell you how to do that. But for now, that's how you lower the seat height on a 690 Adventure, or I'm sorry, Enduro R. Hope you enjoyed the video.